Celtics Reddit podcast.
Back out to Smart. Fakes the pass all the time. Three. Bang! It's Williams three. Lobs it up for Robert Williams.
Should he know? Taylor Brown. What a thunder!
Tatum. Durant, the long reach. Tatum crossover, pull-up jumper. It's good. 50 points for Jason Tatum.
Hello and welcome to the Celtics Reddit podcast. Ben Vallis here. Thank you for joining us. Hope you're doing well. The trade deadline has come and gone. 7 players have been shipped out, and for now, just 2 players are coming back. So we are going to run through the pros and cons of each move made by President Brad Stevens at the deadline. Joining us for all of that and more, Jackson, aka Rickman Lives. Jackson, how you doing, sir?
Hello, Ben. Very well, thank you. Isn't it refreshing to have something to discuss on deadline day other than other teams' deals?
Yeah, no longer blue-balled by our president. It's very satisfying, might I say.
The ghost of Danny Ainge has been completely expunged.
Expunged all the way over to Utah there, thankfully. Look, quick announcement before we get started here. Our friend and co-host Wayne Spooney is launching a new sub-series podcast on our feed, on our existing podcast feed. The title is in the works, but we're honing in on something like a spoonful of Celtics or Celtics spoon-fed or some sort of spoon fun. I think you get the idea. Anyway, Spooney really knows his shit. He's very well loved and respected among us and among people on Celtics Reddit, Twitter, and whatnot. So we're really looking forward to this one. We're recording the first episode tomorrow, so that should be up on our feed in about 24 hours. In the meantime, Jackson, let's get into these Celtics deadline delights. And we're going to start with trade number 1 in order of significance, I might say. And in that, we'll start with this one. The Celtics get Derrick White. The Spurs get Josh Richardson, Romeo Langford, the Celtics' top 4 protected 2022 first-round pick, and the Celtics' top 1 protected 2028 first-round pick. That's a pick swap, mind you. Let's start with the pros, Jackson. Let's run through our pros together, and then we'll end on the negatives, the cons, and we're going to repeat the same format for the remaining trades. So give me your first pro for this trade.
The pro. I just really like Derrick White as a player. Hey,
huge pro.
It's a shrewd signing swap because I mean I didn't see anyone making any noise about this at all. If you had a post on the sub and I missed it, my apologies. But no, I didn't see anything. But like you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. You know, DeJounte Murray is obviously the starting point guard in the future of the Spurs. I think we all kind of like had this romantic idea that we might be able to get him. Wasn't happening. But Derrick White, a completely serviceable, solid, good player. We needed a defense. I mean, we wanted to bolster defense to keep up with, the best defense in the league that we have now. I'm just so pleasantly surprised when I saw it. So the biggest, pro for me is he's just a great player. And I think he's going to fit really, really well with this team. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it, right? To roll up all the pros into one, he's just solid and certainly the best player in the deal. 6'5", as a combo guard, 6'8" wingspan, comfortable playing on or off the ball, strong track record of, a solid passing game and excellent off-ball movement, part of that sort of Spurs family. He has tenure with Udoka and, with the Spurs, obviously, but also Tatum and Brown and Smart for Team USA as well. Jackson, I've just rattled off like 3 of my pros at once. Let me shoot it back to you. What's your next pro for this move?
I mean, I know the swap was for Richardson, but like, let's face it, this is a Schroeder replacement. This is the guy coming in to take Schroeder's minutes and slotting into the offense, right? So, I mean, the stats are pretty comparable if you look at it. I mean, probably the one thing that I like more than anything else, 5.6 assists to Schroeder's 4.2. That's very good to see. Less turnovers, albeit marginally. I'm just really excited because my best mate is a Spurs fan and he, talked about Derrick White, quite a bit. He had a nickname for him that I'm not going to repeat on here. It was nothing too suspect, but I don't know. I'll tell you.
Please tell me off air.
Yeah, definitely will. I feel like his receding hairline with like crazy, young Einstein afro is going to sort of catch on. I think people are going to fashion themselves some wigs and make that around. So I can see him being really embraced by the team, and by all accounts, like, it just seems like a great guy. I'm not hearing that from anywhere, but just his demeanor. He seems very smiley, and he seems very pleasant to be around. So we don't have to worry about him like nuking the chemistry in any way, shape, or form. I don't think. I think coming from the Spurs, you're predispositioned to having like a team mentality. So I think he'll bring that to us, and I think that'll fit really nicely.
Yeah, well, where we are hearing people sing his praises, and this is my next pro, is San Antonio Spurs fans jumping into the Boston Celtics subreddit, just singing the dude's praises, which I don't think I've ever seen with any player departure or acquisition. I've never seen multiple fans of the departing team pop into our subreddit and say, please take care of our baby, essentially. With no mention of Romeo Langford, by the way. Like, how's this guy that we're getting? Just like, no, please take care of our baby. So that obviously bodes well. To get into a couple of Reddit comments on the pro side. So user Indubitably Good Sir submitted this post titled "A Comparison of Richardson and White, rather." And if you're watching on YouTube, you're looking at this post right now. But the gist for those who are listening, White is signed for an additional 2 years, so 4 years in total, at an average of $17 million per year. He's a year younger than Josh Richardson. His box score averages are higher, admittedly on an extra 5 minutes per game, but still much more impressive to look at, and hopefully in our near future to experience as well. And in your advanced stats, so Raptor, box, defensive plus minus, and LeBron, White is noticeably higher in each of those stats. And just quickly, Jackson, to continue on the Reddit comments here, LL Brand Flakes, another post, Schroeder versus White per 36. More assists, fewer turnovers is the gist of that post. It's just greater overall efficiency and less suck ass, as we've grown to experience from Dennis Schroeder there. And finally, Gavin L12 wrote, Derrick White has had an overall down year shooting the ball from deep, only shooting 31.4% on 5.3 attempts compared to 34.6%. Still not great on 6.8 attempts, although lately he may have found his stroke, as he's shooting 47.8% from 3, that's 11 from 23 in his last 4 games. Small sample, I know, but it's nice to know that shooting ability is there. His career high for 3-point percentage is 36.6%. Blah, 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 blah. If he can regress to the mean and shoot essentially his career average, he's going to be great for the team. Any thoughts there?
Seems to be finding his form the same time as the way we are too. So, another, it could have been a synergy
already
there.
In sync. Yeah, the vibes are flowing.
Everyone gets on the... I also looked up binge Derrick White highlights, as I'm sure we all did, and I didn't find one clip of him doing the walk the dog ball
it can't be found
up the court 2 and 5 minutes into the second quarter. Yeah, it doesn't seem to exist, so that's a positive as well too. I'm in favor of that.
Yeah. So rounding it out with the final pros from this particular trade, I think we've been pretty thorough in this, but any others that stand out for you, Jackson?
He was number 4 in San Antonio, so he'll probably wear number 4 here, unless we can sign somebody else. Maybe we'll get to that later. So I don't know. We have a history of good point guards who wear the number 4. So I think that bodes well if he in fact does.
Carson Edwards excluded, but high upside.
Oh no, Carson Edwards definitely included that.
The only other pro that I had is that we may have sold high on peak Jay Rich, because if you remember when we acquired him in the offseason, it had a down year in Dallas and a down year, I guess, the year before as well. And it was kind of, I don't want to say frowned upon, but it was like, okay, like, what are we hoping to get out of this guy? Like, clearly he's done. And then he performed really well, shot, I don't know, I think roughly 40% from 3, and was a good culture guy. We saw those clips of the team weightlifting after victories, and he just seemed like a good locker room guy. But if you had told me at the beginning of the season that we would actually trade him at the trade deadline for Derrick White, I wouldn't have believed you. So it might be like a good, I guess, project and then flip, like how people will buy houses and renovate them and flip them. I feel like we've done the same with Josh Richardson there. So huge pro coming out of this one. Should we move on to the cons?
Absolutely. Yeah, why not? Because I think there are a couple of.
Yeah, let's go.
The 3-point shooting percentage, which I know we touched upon there, is a little concerning because, if there's one thing that this team needs, it's shooting. 2-point percentage, pretty good. 52%, I think, maybe. Anyway, but yeah, as you touched upon there, 31% from 3. this year, although trending in the right direction. So, that doesn't fill me with a great deal of excitement, but I think what else he brings to the table is going to sort of, offset that. And if he is finding his stroke, then awesome. I think you probably will agree with me here that the overall draft capital that we had to sink to get this, I would have been fine with next year's pick, Langford and Richardson, no problem at all. When that pick swap came out, it just made me go, I don't like. It makes you, particularly when it's that far in the future, because you just don't know. You just don't know what we're going to look like. So to see that there is a pick swap attached, although top 1 protected, I didn't see that, so that makes me feel slightly
some
better.
Safety there.
It's a little bit, yeah. That gives me a little bit of cause for concern. But again, it's so far in the future, I don't think it's worth really worrying about when, what we're getting now is a player that we all can agree upon is going to be good for us. But it does make you just go a bit, I don't know quite about that. But I don't know. What about you? What do you think?
The worst part of all of that is that it forces you to think about life in 2028, not just for the team, but for yourself. And, Jason Tatum's going to be 30 that year. So how fucking old will we be then? I don't say it out loud, but pretty old. And that is an uncomfortable position to be put in, Brad Stevens. So that's a huge con. But yeah, I mean, a top 1 protected 2028 pick, I guess the plus side of that is he's basically saying, like, I know I'm confident in the moves that I'm making. I know we're going to be awesome then surrounding a prime Jason Tatum and I guess a 32-year-old Jaylen Brown at that point. Having won multiple championships, maybe like there's a lot of confidence in saying like, we won't really need the pick. We don't really care about swapping at that point. Or they won't want to swap with us, rather. The downside of that is he's saying like, I'm going all in here. And if it doesn't work by the time it gets to 2028, I won't have the job anyway. So it's someone else's problem. It's our problem, Jackson.
I feel like all the picks that are getting thrown about now are like 2027, 2028, 2029. And you're right. It does make you think like, what happened to all the draft picks between now and the next 5 years? They all just seem to have evaporated.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like I wonder if they're like, we have like that one in particular. We know that's going to be a down year. Like it's some sort of, he sees the future, but I don't know. As I said, that's a little bit concerning, but other than that, no, it doesn't really bother me if you don't think about it too much.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's future us's problem. And while we won't have a first round pick this year, there's still 2023 through to 2027. And whether that is us picking prospects through the draft or rolling them up into a trade for a superstar, there's still significant draft capital there. But Brad Stevens has shown a penchant, if you will, for just giving up draft picks. And that's the antithesis of Danny Ainge. So it's hard to complain because every trade deadline, like you sort of talked about up the top there, Jackson, like any Danny Ainge trade line, it was always blue balls. It was always this lack of sort of satisfaction. And now, like, Brad Stevens is almost shooting from the hip if you factor in the offseason as well. So I guess we can't complain because this is all we ever wanted. There's a user, Issy27, who posted, anyone else super soured on non-premium picks? And they're going to say, like, I simply do not care. I'm really happy to only have a very small number of young developing players. As for the details around the Derrick White deal, I'm fine with it. We may even have slightly overpaid, but it's just an overall good vibe to me. I'm big on measuring things on the vibe, by the way. He goes on to say, fuck them picks, war Marcus Smart. So I guess it really comes down to how you value picks, and certainly Brad Stevens is on the opposite end of the spectrum there to Danny Ainge.
Yeah.
What other cons have you got with this trade before we move on, Jackson?
Well, I mean, I was very much on the precipice of giving up on Romeo Langford forever. I think most people already had. I was still holding out a little bit of hope that he would come good, but kind of seeing him go. I mean, being a Celtics fan and seeing the guys that you draft and you have so high hopes for them and then they end up like going away, it feels like a little piece of you sort of dies and whatnot. Yeah. But I mean, we weren't really getting a great deal from him, so that's less of a con than I suppose getting rid of Josh Richardson. You're right. We've already touched on this before, but he ended up being way better for the team and a way better contributor than I figured. So there is that fear that maybe we will lose something by getting rid of him, even if it's just like a locker room presence. But again, I'm trying to talk this con up because I really just don't think there are many. I think Derrick White for the price is pretty ace, to be honest.
Yeah, Derrick White he's a piece, right? And he's signed for multiple years, as is Daniel Theis, who we'll get to in a second. And, whether it's six man or part of the starting lineup, he's a legitimate piece with pedigree in the league. And, like we said, he's played for Team USA. He's played for Pop. He's played for Udoka. It's that pedigree. If you watch the highlights, and shout out to Timmy for getting on that highlight post mere minutes after the deal was made, he has a really awesome combination of passing and moving and cutting, and really things that fall in line with the way that our offense has looked in the past, like whatever our winning streak is now, 6 games. So very welcome and compatible piece there. Keith Smith tweeted out sort of after the dust settled today, Boston put together a lot of potential salary matching in a deal or deals this summer. They got better today. He says, I really like Derrick White, but themselves up to really do some stuff this summer. I think that must be a typo there. Basically, putting ourselves in a good position to do some stuff this summer with all of the variations in contract sizes that we have on the books at the moment. So really good to see. Do you think Derrick White starts? Do you think he is a 6-man? What do you think his role is immediately on the team?
I envision him starting eventually, but I don't think you mess with this starting lineup at the moment. Considering we haven't been behind in a game for 3.5 games, or whatever it is, that tells you that the opening unit sets the table quite well for the rest of the game, sets the tone quite well. So I don't think you mess with that whatsoever. I love the idea of him, taking Schroeder's minutes coming off the bench and running that second unit, or slotting in next to Marcus Smart, probably in clutch situations. I love the versatility that he can bring us, but I don't think he's probably going to start just yet. I think Udoka loves that double big lineup, and obviously you're not going to drop the Jays. So I think we won't be seeing him starting just yet.
Yeah, I think so too. I think he'll come off the bench, maybe first off the bench, but I guess the main takeaway is that the Derrick White, Marcus Smart minutes will, in my mind, be way less damaging than the Dennis Schroeder, Marcus Smart minutes. So that's something to look forward to. Trade number 2. The Rockets get Bruno Fernando, RIP, Enes Freedom, and Dennis Schroeder. The Celtics get Daniel Theis. Shout out to Fungos. Amazing vibes on Twitter and Reddit today. Hit me with your pros here of this one, if I haven't already called out the obvious.
Das Prodigal Son return.
The great German exchange.
Yeah, I'm gonna go obscure. I love that Enes Freedom's last contribution for us was a 3 and an absolute curb stomping of the Nets, and also that Bruno Fernando's last play was that huge dunk. That was awesome. I love the fact that we're getting Daniel Theis back, to be perfectly honest. How much is he going to contribute to this team? I don't know. Is he going to be the same guy that we had 2-3 years ago? I don't know. The fact that he's played for us before, he knows Brad, he knows the Jays, he knows Smart, he knows how to play with these guys. I want to see those elite seals that he sets for Tatum to cut to the basket more. I wonder if Tatum's getting to the basket stat is going to jack up a lot more now. I hope it does. That would be fantastic. So, the pro for this one is, just having a bit of familiarity back. Maybe if anything, he's reliable. He's a solid defender. He's a solid rebounder. If he can't shoot the 3, he never really could shoot the 3, could he? I remember him hitting them, but I don't think it's his strong suit. But I like the fact that, in terms of the third big, it's now not, we don't have to rely on Enes Freedom anymore. Daniel Theis is a huge upgrade. So yeah, just being a better big than the bigs that we sent out, I probably would summarize as my main pro. Yeah, it's
an upgrade at that spot. Cantor, Freedom was not very good, to put it politely. He sucked.
No.
And it was very funny. I don't know if you saw the tweets. He had that speaking tour of Florida booked for the date sort of immediately beyond the trade deadline. And, sort of posted online oh, okay, I wonder if he has an inkling as to what his immediate fate is. And clearly he did, because now he's more than available, having been waived by the Rockets to attend those dates. So good luck, Enes Freedom. Yeah, I mean, you pretty much covered all of my pros there. I think the one I would add is more Peyton Pritchard, potentially. We've got Derrick White in the Schroeder or the Richardson spot. Those are two guards, but with Theis back, there's not necessarily a second guard there to fill in. So maybe a little bit more Pritchard, maybe a little bit more Neesmith. There's sort of a logical gap for those guys to fill, and maybe they do it by committee. But I'm particularly excited to see what Pritchard can bring to the team with maybe a more permanent allotment of minutes with Schroeder gone. And you mentioned the seal screens. I do think that Tatum had a dip in his shooting at the rim numbers immediately after we got rid of Theis, and then had to kind of learn to score and get open and get better looks on that part of the court himself. And now Theis is back, so maybe we can combine the two and we have elite seal / finishing at the rim numbers for Tatum there. We'll see. And Fungos, like I mentioned, is the obvious pro takeaway from this acquisition.
The only other thing that makes me worry. So we were going to get on to cons. We're going to brush through the cons
when you're
real
ready.
quick.
Yeah.
I wonder if we re-inherit the war on Theis. I wonder if opponents' free throw shooting just rockets back up, pardon the pun.
Yeah.
But yeah, my prevailing memory of Theis, other than having peroxide blonde hair that one game, is just the amount of fouls that he got. So yeah, if that continues, then that sucks, I guess. But I don't know. I don't care. It's good. It's just good to have. It's good to have some a familiar, reliable player back.
Yeah, there are a few cons. The war on Theis was the first one I had listed. No more Bruno Fernando. I feel like, we talked about Richardson being a consummate vibesman. I think that Bruno Fernando could be categorized as such. But, good riddance and best of luck in the future, Bruno. There are some who say that Theis is a negative value contract, earning roughly $9 million per year until 2025, but it's a team option in that final year. I think it sort of fits more into our collection of tradable contracts there, so I'm not feeling too negative about it. And the fact that he has tenure and rapport with the team, I think it's maybe less bad value for us than it might be for a team like the Rockets. One other con I'll throw at you, Jackson. We could at least throw Enes Freedom at guys like Embiid, just a body with 6 fouls and causing some sort of disruption, whether it be physically or psychologically, particularly in Freedom's case. We don't really have that anymore. We've seen Theis get absolutely owned by the larger bigs in the league, throughout his tenure with Boston. So that's a bit of a worry, but there are a number of slots on the roster that need to be filled. So perhaps that we can address that between now and when we play Philly, which is very, very soon. Any other cons from this one before we move on?
Nothing that comes to mind. No.
Yeah,
no. I'm pretty high on all these trades, to be honest. I'm pretty. These are all pretty sweet.
The one dampener really is that 2028 pick swap, but I guess like we said, the takeaway is we don't have to worry about that in the immediate future, and we'll be very old and very grey by that point in time. So let's just put it out of our minds. Let's move on to trade 3, shall we? The final trade. The Celtics are trading, or have traded now, PJ Dozier and Bol, a future second and cash to the Magic for a second-round pick, which apparently is super high protected and will never convey. Dozier and Bol are both out for the season, so it's a cost-saving move for the Celtics. And Reddit user Ghost of Jiri Welsh wrote, I know y'all are going to cry about it, but this is a good move. Doesn't mean we're done necessarily. And this was obviously before everything else that happened today. And, by gosh, was that user right? There was so much more to go, including the Derrick White acquisition there. I feel like this is going to be short, Jackson, but let's run through the pros and cons of this minimal trade, please.
I'll start with the con. I really wanted to see Bol, even if it was 30 seconds in garbage time. I wanted the Bol experience at least one time. So the fact that we were deprived of that kind of sucks. I think this move, it gave us the flexibility to get Theis and to jettison Schroeder. Obviously, I don't think that was conditional on that happening, but it puts us under the tax now. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct.
Yes. So that was pivotal in that there. But yeah, I think it goes to show that us on a Celtics podcast, the very episode after the trade happened, I think took us about 57 minutes of an hour podcast to remember.
I think we all knew this would be the outcome. I think that was
yeah, precisely. So no, I mean, seems like the necessary move to make. And yeah, it was, again, it's a pass for me.
Yeah,
pass with flying colors.
You pretty much hit on all my points there, Jackson. The only other pro I'd add is that it opens up additional roster spots for potential buyouts. The remaining con being that a healthy PJ Dozier would have been a good ad, but he's not healthy, so it's redundant. Speaking of those buyout candidates, let's just move on directly to that. So Brian Robb tweeted out today, the Celtics will need to sign at least 2 players ahead of tomorrow's game with the Nuggets. Look for Sam Hauser and Broderick Thomas to be in uniform as well. And Jackson, there are a number of buyout candidates or free agents on the market. I'll just rattle off a couple of names for you here, if you don't mind. Gary Harris, Robin Lopez, who, if they haven't already been bought out by the Magic, they're allegedly about to be bought out. Isaiah Thomas, you may have heard of him. Sam Hauser, who, it sounds like by all accounts, his contract is going to be converted to, a legit NBA contract. And DeAndre Bembry, who the Nets just bought out with all of their movements today. Any of those names or any other names that I haven't mentioned that stand out to you as far as buyout candidacy is concerned?
Well, I think the ultimate fantasy is we bring Isaiah Thomas back. Just how productive and how important of a member of the team he could be. I know we've been over this before, but you want to see it, don't you? You just really hope that it happens. Sam Hauser feels inevitable. The way he's been tearing up the G League. You just pray that it's going to translate to at least a few NBA games. So that would be nice. Gary Harris, I mean, the only other thing I can think of that we obviously need at the moment is shooting. And I think Gary Harris can give you that 3-and-D sort of, player profile. One that you didn't mention there, and I know he's not like bought out specifically, but I mean, given the fire sale that's going on in Portland, I think you would have to consider Ben McLemore. He does play for Portland, right?
For Portland, yeah, I think you're right. We can solve this
it's either that or
with a
Houston.
quick Google.
But yeah. Please help me out, because I thought I was researched for this,
it's
but
Portland.
I may have dropped
Current
the ball.
team, Portland Trailblazers.
Cool.
There you go.
Yeah, nice. I think he's shooting something like, 38% from 3 or thereabouts. I mean, it wouldn't move the needle. It wouldn't be a seismic move, but I mean, in terms of like guys that like are potentially available, that's something to keep an eye out for. But yeah, I mean, we were thinking of all the guys that we could get and that we needed, and like, none of us sort of saw Derrick White in front of us, probably whether we didn't think he was available or whatnot. So, if there is a guy out there who is going to help us, I have a lot of faith after the last 24, 48 hours that Brad Stevens really has his finger on the pulse and really knows what he's doing. So if we do get a guy, I'm sure he's going to be, the right one, or it's going to be a high upside kind of guy. So if it's what happens to be a guy on that list, sweet. If it's not, I trust Brad to make the right move, to be honest. Anyone on there that you're particularly fond of?
Yeah, DeAndre Bembry, when that was posted on the Celtics subreddit, my comment was like, well, we need shooters, so he doesn't really fit, and I was called out. And apparently he's shooting basically 50% from the corners this year, and has found his stroke a little bit. And with the personnel we have on the roster, he'd get similar open looks, I suppose. So I guess the only worry there is there'd be other suitors who are less concerned with the tax or are further under the tax who could offer more money. Because essentially with any of these guys, for us to remain under the tax, we've got to basically just pay them, and they have to accept vet minimum. So Gary Harris, there's whispers of him maybe going back to Denver. I think they're dealing with the same tax avoidance issues as well, so it might come down to just his personal choice. But Harris, for me, given that we got rid of Schroeder and Richardson and only brought back one guard, Gary Harris or Bembry, with their defensive acumen and their obvious shooting acumen, would be a huge acquisition for us. You mentioned Isaiah Thomas. Like, if there was ever going to be a time, and we haven't even mentioned the curse and the fact that the curse is still well and truly alive, and we've discussed with Dr. Charles Ulysses Nesbitt Thorpe on the podcast before, how to unravel and how to undo the curse. Give him a 10-day. Like, why not? He probably won't get any playing time anyway. The Garden's full. There's no sort of COVID restrictions on crowds at the moment. He gets to walk in there, put his number 4 back on. Number 4 is available. I don't know, like there's no harm done at this point. And I need to give a shout out to everyone on Celtics Reddit who has posted that, because it's an automatic downvote, tractor beam. You will get downvoted if you post about signing Isaiah Thomas. But now more than ever, I feel like it's like it could happen, because why not? We need to sign people, even if it's just a 10-day. We can deal with other buyout candidates later in the season.
You saw the ovation and the vibe when Joe Johnson came back and hit a three. Like, can you imagine if Isaiah came back and did that? What if we did it on KG's jersey retirement night?
Vibes.
That would be out of control. Like, I don't care if it doesn't make any sense or if it doesn't work out. I'd be in favor of it. We've been over it so many times. It is what it is. I think everyone wants to see it, no matter how it plays out. So yeah, why not? Why not do it? We need bodies. We need people on the court. So I'm sure he can do that for at least a few minutes a night.
We need physical human bodies with cells and atoms, and Isaiah Thomas, fits that description. So now's the time, Brad. Let's make it happen. Undo the curse. Before we wrap up very quickly, what do you think of this Harden-Simmons trade that went down today? Obviously, it's in our conference, it's in our division. It affects us, and there's an Australian involved. And if you're listening and you don't know the full details of the trade, let me just rattle that off for you very quickly. So Brooklyn,
where have you been?
Brooklyn received Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, a 2022 first-round pick unprotected, and a protected 2027 first-round pick. Just huge haul. Philly received James Harden, and to sweeten the pot, I guess, Paul Millsap. Jackson, where are you at with this one? Like, who won the trade, and like, has anyone redeemed themselves in all of this?
Ben Simmons is going to take some redeeming. I'll tell you what. I'm talking like, atomic clock levels of movement here, but I think it makes me hate the Sixers a little bit less.
Okay.
Just because the stuff that's like I said, I mean, the most minuscule unit of measurement that you can get. I think it makes me hate them a little bit less, just because the stuff that was coming out about Ben Simmons, I don't want to waste too much time going on about how much I detest the dude, but he doesn't play for them anymore. And conversely, he now is a teammate of Kyrie Irving. And if you can think of just two guys, like name any two basketball players that, just really just piss me off, like 1A and 1B, and they're now on the same team. So look, as far as who got better, I think Philly wins the trade. Actually, no, sorry. I think the Nets win the trade. I think the draft capital that they got, the fact that, as much as I talk down to the dude, Ben Simmons motivated and playing alongside Kevin Durant and alongside, an available Kyrie Irving, then, I mean, shit, that's going to take some stopping, Yeah. The fact that they got Seth Curry as well, too, shit, Joe Harris comes back from injury, then, again, we said that they were unstoppable force before when they're fully healthy. I think they may have gotten stronger, to be perfectly honest. So that's a little concerning. But, I mean, hey, they've lost 10 in a row. They're not very healthy, and Kyrie Irving is continuing to make a dick of himself. So it's hard for me to really judge. I feel like they've both just gone for the maximum win now mode, and they're both going to flame out in a couple years time. So whoever wins that arm race, I'm not too sure. My vibe is it's probably Brooklyn, though. What do you think?
Well, yeah, at least Brooklyn got the picks, because in exchange of just insane players, we'll take your insane player, you take our insane player. One team is getting the picks, and the two insane players almost cancel each other out. So the person who's getting the picks, or the team who's getting the picks, I feel like they win that. But I almost feel like it's a little bit redeeming for Joel Embiid, and I am a on record serial Sixers hater. I hate the Sixers more than any team ever.
Too. I feel dirty for saying what I said earlier, yes, but
But the way that Embiid has just kind of stuck it out, he's having an MVP season, probably his best season ever. Hasn't really complained. He's played the media side of things really well, and now he's got, they've gotten rid of Ben Simmons, who is nothing to them this year, and had to give up a few other pieces, but they've gotten James Harden in return. In a basketball vacuum where you don't care about teams and logos and stuff, watching Harden and Embiid playing together, I think, will be really interesting. So it's a little redeeming for Philly there. the Nets, they're just piling on the crazy. I wish them nothing but suffering, and I hope that their team just blows up and they achieve nothing. But they certainly have a bit of a hole there, and Ben Simmons will probably turn things around. Kyrie won't get vaccinated, but the mandate will probably get shut down, and things will probably work out for them as well. So it's really a loss for like other division rivals, right, including the Celtics, because we're a little bit fucked while they are at the level that they're at now.
Yeah, unfortunately. And I buy into a lot of the conspiracy theory going around that they're like very happy with this slide, the Nets I'm talking about, to get themselves in the lower brackets so Kyrie can play maximum playoff games. I think there's definitely something to that.
Yeah. Well, look, it's going to be interesting. In the meantime, that's going to do it for this one. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, subscribe to the pod, check out our YouTube channel, and stay tuned for Wayne Spoonie's new series starting tomorrow. We'll be back with a special guest early next week. Jackson, love your work, mate. Thanks again.
Love you too.
Love you too, buddy.
Yeah, sure. Why not? It's been a good day.
Until next time, go Celtics. Peace.